Guns, guts, and country. Hey, Ed Burlew, let's talk about that kind of stuff with regard to Canada. How are you?
I'm doing fine. It's a great morning.
Hey, good. Where are you this morning?
Oh, I'm in Ontario under sunny skies.
Sunny skies. I'm impressed to hear that. Let's talk about self-defense. Firstly, let me tell the people about you. You're an attorney in Toronto, and you specialize in gun law, and you have represented almost 1,000 people in gun-related incidents in court. Is that pretty accurate?
That's pretty accurate. I do it across Canada.
Hey, good stuff. So recently, the Prime Minister, Mr. Harper, made a crazy comment, so say the left, and he says you should be allowed to defend yourself if you live on a farm. That's a good place to start. Not too sure what that means about us who don't live in farms. I guess we can't protect ourselves, but hey, I'm getting ahead of myself. Tell us about the comment that the Prime Minister made.
Well, what the Prime Minister did was he only recognized what's been going on for hundreds of years. It shouldn't be scandalous. It shouldn't be a surprise. Farmers are self-sufficient. That's how they are brought up. That's what they do. And they've been protecting their property and their families and themselves for hundreds of years in Canada. I mean, that is what's happened. It's always been going on.
Well, it's been going on, but the left has great difficulties with that. I mean, the leader of the NDP, for instance, talked about vigilantism and so many other things. It's absurd, but that's where they're going. I mean, the police chief in Quebec said, you know, this is a bad thing. Guns aren't meant for self-defense, and it's against the law, and it's against the values of our nation, and all of this kind of talk. I mean, where's the stop and start of all of this? Is it against the law to defend your life in Canada with a gun or a baseball bat or anything else? So many people think that it is against the law and that they don't have the right to do that. What does the law say?
The law says that you can defend yourself with whatever you need to defend yourself. You can't go overboard. Like if somebody comes at you spitting at you, you can't shoot them. But if they come at you with a knife, with a screwdriver, with a hammer, you can get them with a gun. I mean, that is what the police do. There's what's called a wheel of force. It's taught to the police. It doesn't apply just to the police. It's for the general preservation of human life. That exists.
Well, it exists, but it's very complex, of course, more so when your gun has to be locked up and your ammunition has to be in a separate place, locked up under key and so on. How do you defend yourself with a gun anyway? They've made it rather difficult, and when in fact you do get it out of storage in time, when you say to the bad guy, just give me a half an hour till I get ready, if he actually waits for you, then you're charged anyway, pretty much. I mean, there's all kinds of examples to that. What then?
Well, I'll tell you, you just have to be able to get at your gun more quickly. I've had many clients, not just Mr. Thompson, but many clients who've used guns in self-defense.
Sure.
Many were not charged at all.
Yeah, but the ones that are charged, well, I thought most were charged. There are some that actually are not charged.
That's right.
Oh.
One whereby there was a home invasion. One brother was outside coming home at night, saw this man run into the house, called the other brother. He got out his competition handgun, pointed at the guy, held him at bay. They called the police. That person was arrested. The cops came in to check everything out. There was no charge. And by the way, that was in Scarborough, Ontario, about 7 years ago. That's not untypical.
Well, that's great news. I mean, I haven't heard of those incidents. Very few of us do, because those things obviously don't hit the Toronto Star, huh? It's just all the bad things about guns and gun people. I mean, statistically, of course, more guns does equal less crime, but all of the groups say the opposite to that. But you know, if you have a gun and you're prepared to defend your life, so many people look upon that as a bad thing. With regard to carry permits, can you get a carry permit, a concealed carry permit in Canada?
More likely to win the lottery.
I get it. So what if somebody is out to get you, and there's proof to that, and I'm going to kill you, and here I come with my gun, I'm a bad guy, and I have a gun, and the good guy goes to the police and says, I have a license, I now want a carry permit, and my life's in danger, still no go? Still buy the lottery ticket?
Still buy the lottery ticket. There actually has to be an attempt at least once that the police have investigated before they'll consider it.
I actually know, as you know, this individual also, he's an elected member of parliament, and he has a license for a gun, and he's a good shot too, if that matters at all, and his life was threatened several times. He applied for a permit and he was turned down, and he lived in fear because, you know, if he did defend his life with a gun, he felt he would be a criminal. So you get to be a criminal effectively by being in charge, because if someone threatens your life and you have a gun, naturally you're going to use it. You're going to carry it because you don't want your life to end, right? I mean, so what's up with that? I mean, what's the defense to that? If you have a license and you're actually carrying a gun and you're caught, I mean, you go to jail, even though you can prove in court the bad guys were after you and that the police turned you down to get a license. Would you go to jail?
Oh yeah, you're going to do 3 years.
3 years.
If you use a pistol, you're going to do 3 years.
So any good guy walking around with a pistol that's loaded gets an automatic 3-year jail term.
Yeah, they just did that on a guy, Supreme Court level, Mr. McDonald. He had come back to Nova Scotia after working in northern Alberta. He neglected to get the authority to move his gun back to his home because it was licensed up and registered at his place in Fort McMurray. So when the police knocked on his door and he answered the door with his loaded 9 behind him, the police rushed into the apartment, found it, and the Supreme Court upheld the fact that he was guilty and he should do 3 years.
See, here's a guy that has passed all the background checks, he's a good citizen, and he's in jail for 3 years. Wow.
Oh yeah.
That's hard to even imagine. I mean, let's go back to the politicians of the day. You got your NDP people, your Liberal people, and they're all saying that you shouldn't have the right to defend yourself and you're not the first responder. You wait 10 or 20 minutes, the first responder will show up and measure your body.
That's wrong.
Well, of course it's wrong, but they do that. Am I not right?
Well, they don't understand the difference between self-defense and vigilantism.
No.
You see, back in the day, like back in the 1800s, when you were a young boy, there were what were called regulators, because we didn't have police forces. The regulators would be groups of men, basically the farmers, the landowners in the area, and they would be going out to make sure that justice was upheld. They were called regulators. Some people call them vigilantes. But you see, what would happen with vigilantism is there would be an event, and then you'd think about it, you'd get a weapon, you'd go out, you'd solve the problem.
Yeah.
Time would pass. Self-defense is immediate. I mean, it's like boom, boom, boom. Somebody's after you, you're reacting, whether you're pushing, shoving, grabbing a gun, trying to get off the floor, trying to get their hands off your neck. That's self-defense. That's a real item. That's a lot different than thinking about it and going out to solve a problem.
But the left-wing politicians in Canada don't get that. They don't believe anybody should have that right to defend themselves. So basically, we're managed by a whole bunch of girly men in the country. They're all sissies and they're cowards. That's me talking, because you shouldn't say that, right? But you know what?
I'll tell you, when you look right at what it says on the police websites, they don't have an obligation to protect us.
My understanding is their firearms are to protect themselves. It's got nothing to do with us.
Well, that's right.
So, I don't get any of this. We need a politician to stand up. I'm going to the NRA show, the convention in Nashville in a couple of weeks, the one that I've invited you to that you can't come to because you're in court. You know that one, Ed? Huh?
I know that one. That bothers me. But I'll tell you something. I'm still the only lawyer the NRA refers its members to in Canada.
Well, I know that. And the interview you and I did a couple of years ago with Ted Nugent helped also, because he also has sent some references your direction, is my understanding. In any event, my point was, when we go to these conventions, politicians stand up. Last year, for instance, there was in Indianapolis, there were, I think, 19 Republican governors that stood up and said, guns are good, we have more guns now, and we have less crime, and criminals aren't safe around here anymore because the good guys are armed, and so on. The politicians talk, whereas in Canada, I haven't seen many that talk. Do you know any that actually speak up? And I wish they would. Who can we encourage to get up there and stand and say, our rights are this, we have the God-given right to defend ourselves? Who are these people? Where are these people? Do they exist in our country?
Seems like that's what Harper said, didn't he?
Well, he did, but I sure hope he doesn't retract that and say, I'm sorry, because so many politicians do apologize when pressed. Right now, he's looking strong, and he needs support, though, does he not? Doesn't he need some help? Somebody needs to also say, I support that, somebody in power, someone who can say, I'm a premier of, I'm a this, I'm a that. He's not getting any of that. All he's getting is the opposite of that.
Well, you're right. That's because that's how the media approaches it. We're getting people who are trying to say that it's almost city mouse, country mouse kind of difference. Yeah. There is no difference. The response times are still slow.
Yeah.
And They don't recognize that you are your first responder.
Would you rather have a cop on the phone or a gun in your hand? I mean, but again, back to this support thing. If Harper could only get some support now, makes me think of the movie Braveheart. He says, "We will follow you, lead." I mean, here's a guy that's finally leading with regard to rights and guns and things, and there's nobody following, nobody in an elected position. Somebody else needs to stand up. Who can we call? Who can I get on this show to talk to? We need a premier, we need a senator, we need some elected official to man up and call way up and get the job done as well. Do you know anybody like that?
Unfortunately, I do not.
That's the issue, because I don't either. And that's a sad statement. Well, maybe we could all wake them up. Maybe they'll come out of the ether and try to help their citizens, because we need help. The Prime Minister is a great, as said, a great lead here, a lead in, but he needs support. So anyway, we'll try to get some of that support. Other than that, we're going to end the show here today with a brief commercial, and the commercial's from no it isn't, I'm Right Edition. I'm thinking now, it's from Firearm Legal Defense. You're involved in that, and that's a service for Canadians. If you have a gun license in Canada, of course, you should be insured for $95 a year. That's going to play next, Ed. As always, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We'll talk to you again soon.
We will.
Won't see you in Nashville.
Oh, I'm trying. Believe me, I'm trying.
Canadian gun owners know that innocent gun owners are often charged anyway by overzealous police people for improper storage of guns and or ammunition, transportation of either, and of course the use of a gun, use of a firearm. And Canada's firearm legislation is very, very complicated, and the police who try to enforce those rules, sometimes they create rules on the fly. Often their interpretation of the law is certainly different than the actual law, and they have an agenda, many of them, and again, some of them are overzealous. It's very expensive to defend yourself against a charge. $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. The rich, they can afford it. They have money. The poor, they get legal aid. The middle class, the masses of the great unwashed, we can't afford that kind of money. What do? Hey, finally, Firearm Legal Defense. It's an insurance product, $95 a year. It gives you $100,000 per incident with no deductible of legal bills paid. So you're defended now for licensed gun owners in Canada. In addition to that, it pays your court costs and also pays you to take time off of work to go to court and get defended properly with a qualified gun lawyer. 24/7, you get to phone that lawyer and say, hey, not $500 an hour anymore. You're part of my policy, part of my premium. Can I take an antique gun with me to the other end of the country to a wedding this weekend? And he'll tell you if you can or if you can't. You'll feel good at the end of it. He's a qualified lawyer. You're a qualified gun owner. You now have protection. Firearm Legal Defense. It's unique. No one else offers this service. Gun clubs, gun associations, and organizations have liability insurance. There's other insurance policies for theft of guns and so on. This is the only product, the only insurance product that provides legal fee coverage for you, plus the 24/7 with a lawyer. Sign up. It's a great policy. As a licensed gun owner in Canada, you need this. Be protected.